In every missing persons case, hope shifts to despair. This is the moment when unanswered texts transform into anxiety and an unsettling silence envelops those left behind. In October 2012, such a moment gripped a quiet home in Colorado Springs. Kara Nichols, a 19-year-old aspiring model, stepped out of her front door late one night and vanished without a trace. At first glance, her disappearance didn't evoke immediate alarm. Younger and fiercely independent, she was known to have taken time away from her usual routine. For some, it may have seemed like she simply needed space. However, for those close to Kara, the sudden silence was alarming. The modeling gig she never arrived for added to the concern, and the unanswered messages felt like a chilling omen. The items she left behind included her laptop and charger, essentials no young woman planning a trip would forget. This absence was terrifying. What fate had befallen Kara? What path had she ventured down, and who awaited her at the end? As her brother pondered these questions, he repeatedly dialed her number. Each call met with a disheartening response: voicemail. He knocked on her door and spoke with her roommates, none of whom had seen her since the evening of October 9th, when she was supposed to leave for Denver for a modeling job. Something felt off in this narrative, as if rehearsed and vague, like a hastily concocted cover story. As the investigation unfolded, the phone's GPS data revealed an unexpected and bizarre route taken through rural backroads. It soon became clear that Kara hadn't actually gone to Denver. She had vanished somewhere entirely different. Kara hadn't traveled to Denver. Instead, she had taken a winding route through rural backroads northeast of the city. As this unsettling truth dawned on her friends, a quiet dread settled within them, setting off a chain of events that would stretch on for years, concealing a sickening truth that wouldn't be uncovered for a decade. But let's rewind to the night it all began. Kara Nichols was not a runaway. She was a young woman with ambition, battling her past while pursuing her dreams. After years of addiction and moving between homes, she had finally found stability in Colorado Springs, living with 3 male roommates. Kara was striving to rebuild her life through modeling, actively working in the industry. She created a profile on Model Mayhem, a platform for networking within the profession. However, not every opportunity was as it seemed. On the night of October 9th, she told her roommates a friend was coming to pick her up, not disclosing the friend's name or her destination, stating only it was for a modeling gig. She left just before midnight, but did not return. Her brother later reflected on how unusual this was for her. Kara always checked in and answered his calls. Their parents, having recently relocated to Chicago, were always worried about her well-being. As hours passed with unanswered calls, concern mounted as no one could locate her. Something had fractured within her family as they struggled to find Kara. She was gone, not just from Denver, but from anywhere they could reach out to her. This new discovery altered the trajectory of the case, shifting the focus dramatically. Suddenly, Kara's face was added to a troubling roster of missing women, each connected to the clandestine world of escorts. Behind every one of these cases lurked a list of dangerous men, often hiding behind phony identities and disposable phones. One name emerged prominently in the investigation: Joel Hollendorfer. Joel Hollendorfer, a 46-year-old man residing just outside Colorado Springs, claimed he had never met Kara. He stated that he had responded to her advertisement, and while they exchanged texts, she ultimately failed to show up. His calm demeanor and the neatness of his story raised suspicions. However, the route her phone had taken that night led detectives closer to his residence, where her phone had last pinged, not far from a stretch of land belonging to Hollendorfer's family, an area surrounded by dense trees and quiet, dark soil. In 2014, 2 years after the case was reported, detectives brought cadaver dogs to the property. The dogs indicated several locations of interest, but the search was abruptly halted due to a lack of excavation and further answers. For nearly a decade, the case remained inactive. Years later, someone finally reopened the case, prompting detectives to revisit the investigation. A single interview cracked the case wide open. But surprisingly, it didn't come from Joel himself. It emerged from someone much closer: Christina Hollendorfer, Joel's ex-wife. For years, she had held the truth tightly, like a live wire. What she revealed changed everything. Meanwhile, the official search for Kara Nichols faded from public attention. As years passed, new cases took the spotlight, and Kara's name slipped into the haunting quiet reserved for cold cases. Yet for her family, moving on or acceptance was impossible. Something always felt unfinished. Her mother meticulously kept every file, lead, and unanswered email from detectives. Her mother preserved every file, lead, and unanswered email from detectives. Meanwhile, her brother, now older, continued to scan every crowd, hoping to one day find her. Nearly a decade after Kara's disappearance, a call arrived that shattered the quiet. El Paso County Sheriff's detectives had reopened the case, revealing new information that warranted further investigation. At the center of attention was Joel Hollendorfer, the man who had previously claimed ignorance. The renewed inquiries began with an interview, not with Joel himself, but with his ex-wife, Christina Hollendorfer. When detectives first reached out to her in 2022, they were unprepared for the revelations that would follow. After a decade of silence, Christina suddenly had a story to share. And once she started, it became clear why the truth had remained concealed for so long. Christina recounted the night Kara disappeared, describing how Joel returned home acting strangely, distant, cold, and with an unsettling demeanor she had never encountered before. He confessed to Christina that he had invited a young girl over, claiming that she was there for a good time, but something had gone horribly awry. Joel stated that Kara had overdosed and, in a state of panic, he didn't know how to respond. Instead, he wrapped her body in plastic, drove it to his family's rural horse ranch, but that was only the beginning. What Christina revealed next chilled the detectives to their core. She alleged that Joel had buried Kara's body on top of a horse grave, thinking no one would ever suspect him. He concealed her remains under an old, decaying horse carcass, using nature as a grotesque form of camouflage. It was a calculated and vile method to hide a human life beneath an animal's death. This horrific act made one thing abundantly clear. This had never been an accident. Joel was someone who understood how to cover up a crime, and that raised a profound question, one that investigators didn't even need to voice. His fear, abuse, and need for control rendered his secret and her silence into a weapon. Yet, after years of distance and the burden of a decade-old truth festering in her chest, she finally erupted. Armed with her confession, detectives returned to the same patch of land they had visited 8 years earlier. 8 years prior, they had come to this location. This time, however, they began to dig deeper. What they unearthed would validate every haunting fear that Kara's family had struggled to accept. The excavation revealed human remains. These remains lay beneath the skeletal remains of a horse. These remains were situated directly beneath the skeletal remains of a horse. It was indeed her, Kara Nichols, who had been there all along. She lay buried in a grave crafted to conceal her loss forever. The devastating news struck the family like a bolt of lightning. Upon receiving the news, Kara's mother crumbled into tears. Immediately, detectives detained Joel Hollendorfer. No more falsehoods, no more elaborate cover stories, only stark, incriminating evidence and a witness who had held on to her truth for a decade. Despite Joel now being incarcerated, something about the narrative continues to feel off. Questions linger. Why was Kara present at that location initially? What transpired inside that house? Was it truly a tragic overdose, as Joel insisted, or merely another layer of an elaborate deception? By the time the truth was uncovered beneath that horse grave, Kara Nichols had been missing for nearly a decade. To grasp what truly happened to her, we must look back not to the night of her disappearance, but to the subtleties of quiet manipulation that began weeks prior. Kara was known for her dreams. Modeling was not just a passion for her, it was her escape and her envisioned path forward. Yet these aspirations came with risks. Kara had joined Model Mayhem, a platform designed for aspiring models and photographers to connect. While this seemed like an opportunity, hidden among the legitimate offers were dangerous predators. Men who preyed on vulnerability saw Kara, a girl already grappling with substance issues and instability at home, as an easy target without her even realizing it. One such predator was Joel Hollendorfer. He began contacting her casually, posing as someone interested in organizing photo shoots. As he maintained this veil of anonymity, he drew Kara deeper into his dangerous scheme while keeping suspicion at bay. He worked to keep suspicion at bay, presenting himself as a harmless scout for photo shoots. However, the true nature of his proposition soon emerged. Escort work, not modeling or photography. This shift revealed something far more transactional, targeting those who were desperate for money. As Kara found herself pulled deeper into this web of influence, she chose not to confide in her family or friends. On the night of October 9th, she misled her roommates by claiming she had a modeling job to attend. That small deception would lead to fatal consequences. Her final messages, as recorded in text, were distressingly brief. She verified the meeting location and requested confirmation before she vanished for a decade. While he resumed his life as if Kara Nichols had never existed, the secrets surrounding her disappearance refused to die with her. The manner in which he buried her beneath a horse carcass was not merely to conceal her. It was a calculated effort to ensure that anyone who stumbled upon her remains would not question what they found. His actions aimed not only at hiding her, but also ensuring that if anyone discovered the bones, they would never question their origin. It was a grotesque form of camouflage, calculated and cold, and it almost succeeded. What the police would eventually uncover was even more terrifying. Joel had sought out other women prior to Kara. Investigators found a series of communications between him and various escorts. While many chose not to respond, some did engage with him. Disturbingly, one escort had backed out at the last moment, describing Joel's home as having a dangerous vibe. She felt an instinctive urge to leave and never return. Kara, unfortunately, did not have the same fortune. The narrative surrounding her overdose served as Joel's shield, but prosecutors were aware that the details did not align. He assumed her life was in such disarray that her absence would go unnoticed, that she would simply fade into the shadows of forgotten names. For 10 years, the world had forgotten Kara Nichols, not recognizing her as an escort or mere statistic, but as a young woman whose life had been cruelly taken and whose remains were discarded like waste. Joel was not a grieving man mourning a tragic accident. He was the architect behind her disappearance. His silence, far from being an expression of grief, was the product of a chilling calculation. The prosecutors, with methodical precision, guided the jury through each harrowing detail, starting with Kara's sudden disappearance and the cadaver dog alerts from 2014. Haunted by fear and guilt, she carried the burden of that night when Joel confessed to trying to erase her from existence, burying her beneath a horse's bones. When the courtroom cleared and the headlines faded, a quieter story began to emerge. Not one about a killer, but about the girl who had been made to vanish. Society tends to overlook the lives of girls like Kara, those who don't fit the narrow definition of innocence. They lead complicated lives that often leave them vulnerable, stepping into dangerous situations, not out of recklessness, but from necessity. Kara, at just 19 years old, faced a daunting reality as she chased an unclear future. It was during this tumultuous time that she became involved in escort work, navigating a world fraught with peril. At just 19, Kara faced a harsh reality endured by many like her. Struggling with addiction and entering precarious worlds, she was not reckless, she was vulnerable, aspiring to define her future. This pursuit led her to escort work via modeling platforms that blurred opportunity and exploitation. Her name, now lost, symbolizes the sacrifices made when we choose to look away. Yet it also represents our commitment to not stop searching. We must fight not just for her, but for all those who deserve to return home.